Bless all of you. Welcome to Sunset. The name comes from Brother Branham himself. There is actually a Sunset Peak on the map. If you looked at a map of Arizona, you'll find Sunset. It's about 25, 30 miles from here. That's not the right one. This is the right one. The reason why Brother Branham chose this, because in the 50s, Brother McAnally, which was a deputy sheriff in Maricopa County, which is Phoenix, was a prospector. And Brother Branham went with Brother McAnally. Him being a prospector and Brother Branham being a hunter, they both shared the same thing. They loved the outdoors. And so when Brother Branham would come here, what happened was that he found out it was a nice place to hunt for javelina. So he always tried to schedule a hunt. He'd go up to Phoenix, and he'd preach meetings in Phoenix that was, the doors were opened by Brother Carl Williams, who was the president of the Full Gospel Businessmen. Am I talking too fast? Okay. And so what happened was that in January he'd preach in Phoenix, and then in February he would make preparation to come here to this area to hunt for javelina. Javelina is a pig that weighs anywhere from 35 to 45 pounds, depending on its size. It is the ugliest creature you ever seen, with really big teeth. The javelina's favorite food is the prickly pear. It's the green cactus that's round and looks like big bunny ears, and they've got thorns about that long. And the javelina likes to eat thorns, cactus, and everything. That's their salad. And this area is known for javelina hunting. So as you look around, you see the terrain that is here. It's very private. And yes, there is no McDonald's. Thank you.
I'm taking pictures so I can prove it.
Okay. So, coming here was a delight for Brother Branham. And then after so many years passed, Brother Branham, because of a vision Brother Branham had of a road crew coming through and widening Ewing Lane, where Brother Branham lived in Jeffersonville. When he saw that they were getting ready to widen this road because of a vision, he knew that it was time to go to Arizona. The Lord had instructed him to move west, which he did not understand why, but he came here because the Lord told him to. He said, I have a church. I have a home that's paid for. And he said, but why would the Lord want me to go to Arizona? In December of 1962, Brother Branham preaches a message, Sirs, what is the time? Or Sirs, is this the time? He has several different names. And in there he talks about the mysteries of God being made known. He shared several visions of what different ones had. He even shared about the time where he saw he was out hunting. And while he's out hunting, he was wearing a pair of blue jeans. And I have a pair of blue jeans on today. So now I'm in the message. So are you. And so are you. Sister, you're okay. No, but anyway. They say if you don't have an eagle belt buckle, you're not in the message. That was when I first came in. But anyway, that's kind of changed. I think, what is it now? I forgot what it is. But anyway. So Brother Branham says, in this vision, he stoops down to take a cockleburr. It's like a big sticker. And he took this, he reached down to take it out of his trouser legs. And when he did, there was a great explosion that took place. Many things happened during this time, and he said nobody could withstand this explosion. Big bang, right? And he said he didn't know whether it meant the end of his life. He had no idea what it meant. He said just nobody could have survived that. And so when he was praying about it, he told the congregation that when he asked the Lord, does this mean the end of my life, nothing happened. Then after several hours, he said, Lord, does this have anything to do with the furtherment of my ministry? And the power of God almost packed him out of the room, he said. So he knew that for some reason God was going to do something with the ministry that God had given him. In January of 1963, Brother Branham and Sister Mita came to Tucson, Arizona with their family and moved here and rented a small home. during this time, Brother Branham took Sister Mita to Sabino Canyon. This is the time that Brother Branham goes up to pray. And while he's praying, asking the Lord, what is it that the Lord is getting ready to do for him? And when he raises his hands, he said, whether I was in a trance, whether I was in a vision, he said, as I was praising the Lord, a sword struck my hand. And he looked at it, and we know the story about it as he told us in God in Simplicity and in the Breach message. And during this time, after this happens, he runs back down the trail, and he's yelling. And Sister Branham gets out of her car and says, Bill, what's the matter? And Brother Branham tells Sister Meady, which Sister Meady told us this, that he said, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. God is fixing to do something. Well, Sister Branham didn't really understand what all that meant until Brother Branham, later on, March 17th, started preaching the 7 seals. In February the 28th, 1963, Life magazine packed an article. Mysterious cloud appears over Arizona, which Gerald and Alberta saw that cloud when they were near Prescott, Arizona, right?
Yeah, and Sedona.
And Sedona. They actually saw that cloud and didn't know what it meant till later. This cloud, 28 miles wide, was so 30 miles high, too far up to have any vapor at all, but a cloud appeared. And then on March the 2nd, Brother Branham was getting ready to come to go javelina hunting here. At that time, he got a call from a Mr. Iris. Mr. Iris was the man that took the photo of the halo picture, which is we call the halo picture. It's the pillar of fire over Brother Branham's head, January of 1950, okay, in Houston, Texas. Mr. Iris's children, his stepchildren, had committed a crime. They committed this crime. The state of Texas was going to execute them. The churches got together and they asked if Brother Branham would come and preach a message to help get them off death row. Brother Branham said that he would go. He and Billy Paul drove to Houston, Texas. He preached the message absolute. In the message, he talked about how that Cain killed his brother. He committed the crime, but God put a mark on him and didn't kill him. He was marked for the rest of his life. Brother Branham, and I thought this was so neat, Brother Branham makes this statement. He said, after I was finished, they gave me some kind of an Oscar or something, which is a reward because he was instrumental in convincing the courts of the state of Texas to give them life in prison instead of being executed or killed. And the man told Brother Branham, sir, I was your worst critic because I did not believe your doctrine. He said, but thank you for coming and saving my children's lives. And so he gave Brother Branham a copyright of that photo. And that's why we can print as many copies as we want today, because it was given to Brother Branham. Later on, they came back to Tucson. They got the brothers together. They came here around March the 5th or the 6th. And that's when they started hunting. This campsite that you see here is the campsite where the brothers camped. In March of 1963, there was Brother Fred Softman, Brother Gene Norman. There was Brother Roy Borders. There was many different brothers that was with Brother Branham at the time. We have personal testimonies of these brothers when they came. It's on MP3 that you can get from our office and listen to their testimonies. None of these men, all these men had different stories to tell how they felt. Now, whenever they came with Brother Branham, a lot of them did not ask Brother Branham a lot of questions. They just let Brother Branham be a man, let him enjoy his hunting trip. And Brother Branham on the first day got his javelina. He shot his javelina. And they used these trees. When they shot the javelina, they would tie them up and they would what we call clean them or gut them. And he said, now brothers, he said, tomorrow, he said, now I'm going to go up on this ridge. He said, I'd like for you to go around this way. I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to run the javelina herd back towards you so that you can get your kill. And Brother Softman and Brother Norman and all the brothers said, well, thank you, Brother Branham. We appreciate that. Brother Branham, as you know, was an avid outdoorsman. He could hike very well. He was very fast. One time I went to the top of that cliff. It took me an hour and a half to get up there. Brother Branham could do it in 20 minutes. Now, on tape, Brother Branham said I was several miles away from the camp.
From here.
From here. So exactly where that is, nobody really knows. But I got a nice story to tell you about that when I conclude. So Brother Branham on this particular day, he's going to go and round up this herd and bring them back towards the brothers. Brother Fred said he thought he had heard something but didn't know what it was. Brother Gene Norman said several times that morning, I felt the presence of God and I just started crying uncontrollably. And he said, I don't know what happened. And all the brothers had different stories relating because they didn't know what Brother Branham was doing. They didn't know where Brother Branham was. But yet on tape we find Brother Branham says, so here I am looking for these javelina, and he says, I noticed this herd, and I was going to leave some pieces of paper for markings so that I could find my way back. And he said, there I was, and I looked down, and I saw the cockleburr in my trouser legs. And so he reaches down, according to the vision, and he takes it out. And an explosion takes place. He said 7 angels came out of eternity. Hallelujah. I believe it.
Amen.
Said he picked me up in their midst and turned me towards Jeffersonville. And I was given the commission to preach the 7 seals. When Brother Branham came back to camp that afternoon, he was very solemn. He was very quiet. And the brothers already knew something was going on. But Brother Branham didn't say anything. Brother Gene Norman told us that Brother Branham, after this was over and the hunting trip was finished, they got back around the 10th or the 11th. And Brother Branham said, Brother Gene, we need to go to Jeffersonville. God has given me some sermons to preach. I don't know what the Lord is going to show us, but we have to go. So they got together and they got in Brother Branham's station wagon. Brother Branham drove, and then Brother Gene drove sometimes, and Brother Branham was very quiet. And Brother Gene would just sit there, never ask Brother Branham anything. And Brother Branham, the whole trip, Brother Branham was quiet and didn't say anything. And of course, Brother Gene respected Brother Branham. Sister Branham and the family did not go with Brother Branham to go back to Jeffersonville at that time. So when Brother Branham preached the seals, his wife and family were here in Tucson. And of course, you and I have heard what happened. The next year is 1964. In 1st of March, when javelina hunting season opens up, they come back again. And this time there's twice as many brothers. Now we have Brother Douglas McHughes, we have Brother Donnie Wirtz, we have many brothers, and you've all heard their testimonies on tape. You've heard Brother Branham talk. I say the word tape. They don't have tape no more, do they? You know, it went from MP3s, but anyway. So Brother Branham talks about the different things that happened at that time. And so one day, Brother Branham stops, and all the brothers are looking at him. He walks over, he takes a rock, looks at it, and then tosses it in the air. And when it hits the ground, a whirlwind came up out from where that rock landed. A whirlwind is like a little tornado. And it came up and it stirred the ground just like this. And then it went straight up in the air. And Brother Branham said, "Thus saith the Lord, God is fixing to do something." He didn't know what was going to happen. He had no idea. And so the next day, they were all standing in the camp. Brother Branham was going over, and, he was picking up the trash. And, any pieces of paper, he'd reach down and pick it up. And he'd throw it into the fire and kind of, clean up around a little bit. Then all of a sudden, he says, "Brother Roberson," he said, "get under something." He said, "Brother, get under." He said, "Something is fixing to happen." Brother Branham came over here like this. He walked up to this rock. And he stood here like this. And you've got trucks and tent sites and everything out here in the camp area. And brothers, he said, "Brothers, get under your trucks." Just like that. And about that time, a whirlwind came over this bluff right here. And as it came over the bluff, and as it started coming down, one brother said it sounded like an airplane. Another brother said it sounded like a freight train, like a roaring train coming down a railroad track. And everybody had a different, the way it sounded. But it was very, very loud. And when it came over that bluff right there, it started blasting rock out of the side of that bluff. And when it did, it knocked the tops of the trees. And these trees that you see all around the campsite here, they're called mesquite trees. And these mesquite trees, after that took place, it was as flat as a pancake. And Brother Branham said, for hundreds of feet, he said, these rocks that blasted out of here knocked the tops of trees out. And to this day, you can still see that every tree out there is almost the same height. And that's been 50 years ago. Now, everybody's pretty scared. They all come up out of their trucks. They all look up at Brother Branham. Brother Branham's got his hat over his heart. He says, "Thus saith the Lord," and he holds his hand up like this. He says, "Thus saith the Lord." He says, "Judgment's fixing to strike the west coast." That's all he said. He never explained it. He never said anything else that we know of, what the brothers could remember. And the brothers were all wondering, and they were curious, First of all, they were frightened, but they knew, Brother Branham standing here, that God was speaking through his prophet. Then we know, not too long after that, Good Friday was just before Easter of 1964. Alaska almost sunk, Brother Branham said. There was an earthquake. How many has ever seen the film Earthquake Judgment about Alaska? Have you ever seen that film before? You can see it on YouTube. And that happened not long after what Brother Branham happened here. Then later on he talked about California sinking. He talked about the earthquake. He talked about the Great Dragon and how that it just lifted up its head a little bit. He said one day, he said, California will sink beneath the ocean. Now, could you imagine being there? Could you imagine, after this, Brother Donnie Wirtz, Brother Branham talks about he had a cancer on his ear. Brother Branham walked up there, just put his hand on his ear like that. When he took his hand away, it was gone. Brother Branham said Donnie was full of the quickening power. And he talked about that in many different messages. It is the rising of the sun and different ones. I think he said it 5 times. He talked about Brother Donnie. He talked to Brother Douglas McHughes about his mother had tumors on her feet. He talked about how his eyes were really bad and that the doctor said there was no hope for him. There's nothing that they could do. And Brother Doug McHughes, even though he's frail today, he can still see. Many things happened in the camp at that time. That rock that Sister Berta is sitting on right now is the only rock that we know of where Brother Branham laid on the ground and he leaned his head against that rock. And we have pictures of it. We have pictures of Brother Joseph, his son, and him standing on this rock right here. And you can get the 8x10s and photos from Jeffersonville and from our church. Many different places you can see these on the internet. There's so many different stories. A lot of people have asked us as many times as we have been here, well, where are these rocks? And what shape are these rocks? Brother Branham, on a film, he picks up a rock that was laying on the ground, and it was a pyramid-shaped rock. And he holds it up, and he does like this. Now, I would probably go like that, but he goes like this. And it was a three-pointed rock. He said to show that the three are one. And every rock that was blasted out of that mountain was in a pyramid shape, a three-cornered rock. Literally, tons now, thousands and thousands of pounds of rocks have been taken out of this place. So, remember, Brother Branham said hunt for hundreds of feet. So if you walk out there, you may find a three-cornered rock that's out of that bluff. I had so many, I've already given them all away. I think I've got maybe one left from many, many years ago. But even by 1973, the first time I came here, tons have already been taken out. Now, what's the significance about this? What's some more things to see? If you step back and you look at this bluff up here, I'm going to ask you to maybe come back on the other side of this log. So everybody look where you're walking. Don't trip over anything. I'd like to show you something about this bluff. If you look in the middle here, you'll see like two brown streaks. And over to the left of those two brown streaks, you'll see that it looks like a white cross. That white cross has been there ever since that rock was torn apart by that whirlwind. And sometimes, depending on the light, you can really see that white cross stand out, and sometimes it's very difficult depending on the shadows of it. But there is a white cross up there. A lot of people ask, well, where did the seven angels come down at? Well, that's a good question. 4 years ago, my wife and I were in Idaho, and we were talking to Brother John Martin. You've heard Brother Branham talk about the Martin boys on tape. Brother John and Brother Earl were brothers who were evangelists at the time Brother Branham's ministry was going on. And Brother John and Brother Earl wanted to come here to go hunting, but they couldn't get off work. So Brother Branham took and drew a map how to go from Tucson, Arizona, and to get here to this campsite. And on this map, he drew Tucson, Interstate 10, Wilcox, Bonita, Klondike, and the corrals to go to the road that gets back here to this campsite. So I asked Brother John. Brother John had had a stroke a couple of years prior to that, and he wasn't able to talk for years, but when my wife and I were there, he could speak. And I said, Brother John, do you have that map? He said, I do. I said, could I see a copy of it? When he showed me a copy of this map, I don't know how in the world they found this place, but they did. They took that map of Brother Branham's and drove straight to this campsite. When they got here, they came here about 2 weeks before Brother Branham got here. And when they got here, they came over. Brother John took a business card out of his back pocket, took this card and rolled it up, folded it, and put it over here in a rock, and put a rock on top of it. In 1964, 2 weeks later, Brother Branham shows up with all the brothers to go hunting. I think about the second day, Brother Branham asked Brother Borders, wasn't Brother John and Brother Earl and Brother Blair supposed to come here? He said, yes, Brother Branham. He said, I think they were here a couple of weeks ago. Well, while they were talking, Brother Branham walks over to the rock like this. He said, yeah, I kind of wonder if they were here too. And he reaches over. He reaches over like this. He takes a rock out of the way, takes his pocket knife, reaches into the rock, pulls it out, and it's Brother John Martin's business card. He said, I guess they were here after all. And we've still got that card today. So I suppose the same God that told Brother Branham about the Trinity and all these other things is the same one that told him about that card being in that rock and all the other things that God revealed. It's nice to hear all these stories, but we didn't come here to make us believers. We're already believers. Are we believers?
Amen.
It's nice to know that God was able to allow his prophet to come here, relax, and enjoy. Brother Mitch over here is one of my favorite fellers because he loves the outdoors just like we all do. And we just like to get out and hike and shoot a little bit and have some fun and enjoy life a little bit. You know, God's good to us. We're all waiting for the coming of the Lord. And until the Lord comes, we have things we have to do. It's my honor to be a part, to be able to bring you here today. And before I close, or before we end here and get ready to have lunch, I got one more thing to show you. In 1969, Brother Green, my pastor at the Tabernacle, Tucson Tabernacle, he was going to have a convention. So he invited brothers from all over the world to come and have services with him in Tucson. And he wanted to have an opportunity to take people to Sabino Canyon, to take people around to Tucson and bring them to Sunset. There was a sister here, I can't remember her name right now, but she came and she took and she put up her easel and she painted this bluff right here. Okay? She was kind of proud of it, so she showed it to Brother Green. When Brother Green looked at the painting, he said, "Sister, why did you put Brother Branham's profile on this picture?" And she said, "Brother Green, I didn't." Now, a profile is like this, where you come down the forehead, your eyes, your nose, comes down to your mouth, and your chin, and like that. It's a side profile. And so, Brother Green said, if you did not put this here, you must have painted it exactly like you saw it. She said, yes, I did. So he and a couple of brothers got in their pickup truck, and they drove right back over here that very same day. And they came out here to the road. And when they looked up on the edge of this bluff, they saw the profile of Brother Branham's face. Is anybody having a problem seeing it?
No. You notice there's a lot of triangular rocks still here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a 500-pound weight limit, so
We got a pickup truck.
yeah.
My.
Is there any questions? Wow. We must have done a good job. If everybody wants to grab after you've taken photos, you grab some lunch, and you want to take about 20, 30 minutes to walk around and see if you can find one of those rocks, help yourself. Okay? God bless you.